everyone. Today we have Tejas from. Where are you from?
I'm from India, live in Berlin.
Okay. And I really want to make this episode a great one because I already know that the story of Tejas is interesting to listen to. But I wanted to have him, 30 minutes just with me because I want to hear the whole story again. So I pretend that I know absolutely nothing. I have some spoilers. When you watch a series, yes, you know something. Start by introducing yourself, of course.
Cool. Hi, I'm Tejas Kumar. That's pronounced like contagious. And in Spanish, contagious means with Tejas. So we discussed that, but have been building on the web for over 20 years, unofficially. So I started coding when I was 8 years old and started working professionally when I was 15. I'm 31 now. That's 16 years of like professional experience. And across the stack, I started as front end. Actually, I started as design, then front end, then back end, then DevOps. I'm comfortable in all environments, provided the programming language is one that I know, which is TypeScript. I know you do a lot of Rust. I do some Rust. I don't do it professionally. And today I speak at a number of conferences. I've written a book and I host a podcast, which you're going to be on soon. So that's the short version.
Yes, so I reached out Tejas and he said like, okay, so then come back on my podcast, and of course we will do it. I saw that you had great experience with public speaking. Like I read this today, 12 years, right? So
Yeah.
okay, so we probably will have one question about public speaking too. I'm still fresh, let's say 2 years, but before that. I would like now. Probably this is my favorite part because I want to ask you, how did you become a developer? But let's start since the beginning because I think that I have some parts to talk about. So I'll sit here because I really want to know like how everything started basically.
Sure. Yeah. I can talk about that. Maybe I can start very high level and give you like a big overview, and then we can narrow down into the places you feel are interesting. So I was born in India in 1993 with a pretty rare, pretty fatal disease. I couldn't do anything without. It's very easy for me to die. I'm happy to talk about that if you want. When I was 4, my family moved to Qatar, where the FIFA World Cup was most recently. And that's where I got introduced to code. First language was HTML and then CSS. Some would say HTML is not a programming language. Whatever, that's your problem to deal with. And learned JavaScript shortly after. And from Qatar, I spent most of my life in Qatar, so 18 years. Eventually, finished school. I had nothing else going on. I was maybe going to be a musician or a comedian or something, and then got a job writing code. And did that for some time until I got another job in Germany. I couldn't stay in Qatar. I don't know if you know this, but people are not allowed to like live in Qatar long term. You can't retire there. When my father was getting old enough to think about retirement, I got a job in Germany and moved out. And I've been living in Germany since then. And in Germany, I moved for a front end position, and I've just been working in tech since then for the past 9 years.
I didn't know about this of Qatar that you can't stay for long life. So I don't know what happens. Like after, is there like an expiration date? I don't know,
Yes,
10
there's an
years, 20
expiration date
years.
on. There's an expiration date on everybody's visa. Everybody needs a visa who's not a citizen, and so the visa expires on a certain time. And if you're a certain age, they just don't renew it. So goodbye.
Okay, for example, I didn't know this. I've never been to Qatar. Probably I'll go probably for some conferences, but I didn't know this. So yeah, probably you. But I don't know if this is necessarily a bad thing because you moved and you
Yeah.
find out something anyway. Just some other problems.
Yeah.
But yes. Okay, and so you had different jobs. Let's say now currently you worked for a period in Berlin, but for example now you are not an employee. Now you're working
Yeah.
for yourself. So I would like to know also this part, and then we'll get into all the other stuff,
Sure.
of
Sure.
course.
Yeah. Now I work for myself. At the time of recording, I run a developer relations consulting agency. And we work with a number of developer facing companies like flightcontrol.dev, Crab Nebula. We've done some work with LiveBlocks and open source. This is more short term stuff. Just any company in the dev tool space, we probably have some type of relationship with them. And that's what I do. I don't speak for companies. This is a question I keep getting, like, hey, if you're doing a talk at a conference, like, is this because some company came and paid you to do it? Like 9 out of 10 times not. And sometimes yes, and then I'll tell you, but usually not. So it's just we sit with their C-suite, so their founders and CEOs, and talk about, okay, DevRel is important to you. Um, how is it important to you? And then we slowly identify, I say this, we slowly identify needles to move, like what would help your business. And then we look at the work required to do that. And sometimes we find out that they don't have the people to do that work. And then we just do the work. So it's sort of, that's the pipeline. Like we just have a chat. Okay, what do you want from DevRel? We identify some work that may help. And then we do the work. We see if it helps and we continue.
I like the idea that you have these DevRel services that so you collaborate for companies, but it's like also some of them are mid-term or even long-term. So it's not like a
Yes.
one piece of content. That's more like an influencer thing, I would say. So
Yeah.
it's usually you make a plan. So if you make a plan, then it's probably DevRel.
Yeah, and
Nice.
you can't do
Yeah.
like for long-term DevRel, you can't do like one thing and hope. I mean, sometimes you can. Like I'm sure like if companies like Appright come to you and they're like, "Hey, talk about us," then you will, and then that will move their needle. But usually for like long-term DevRel health, you would need to try something for some period of time, maybe 28 days or 3 months, and then look at what's happening and then change course. And so it is pretty long-term usually.
I saw your pinned tweet, and I really that shocked me because you are super natural in speaking. You're speaking like for 45 minutes, 1 hour. I checked some parts, and as I said, you look very natural, and you talk, and it seems that you're also a very passionate public speaker. You have been doing this for many years. I also do something very similar because, for example, on 19 out of 20 talks I gave is not for my company, but it's me doing public speaking. Also, sometimes even taking days off. So it's another career, let's say. Probably in the future, I will make more talks for daily dev, but I like this to be my thing for now. And how do you think that this helped you in your career and your life? Because if you are a public speaker, you understand how much effort it does take, especially if you are doing something else in your life and you're not just a billionaire taking planes and doing talks. Like some people think that like I do this as a job, for example. I don't know if it's your case, but like for me, it's something that basically do all the talks that you saw, it was me in my days off. So it
Yeah.
was basically my holidays. It's traveling, but it's not exactly a relaxing trip, I would say. So, how do you think this helped you and
Yeah.
in your improving your communication in your life?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Speaking didn't help me much improve my communication. It's sort of the other way around. Like I was a good communicator. A lot of people told me, and that's why I got into speaking. Um, it how but when I did get into speaking, how it helped me so many ways. One of the most clear ways speaking helps me is I usually am invited to speak at things with experts, absolute geniuses, really smart people who I look up to. People like David Khurshid, people like Sean Wang, people like Chris Coyer, Jason Lengstorff, Anjana Vakil, Maya Shavin, like ridiculous, right? And so oftentimes they'll invite me to speak. And in the beginning of my career, it was honestly, I can say this, it was more entertainment than anything else. They're like, this guy's I don't know if they said that, but I heard from some, he's an entertaining speaker. It's engaging. Let's put him on stage. And cool. But I had a lot of, as I'm sure many people can relate, I had a lot of imposter syndrome. I was like, you're placing me with all these technical experts, and I'm not really a technical expert here. I just entertain people, um, and that then motivated me to learn as well. And this motivation was so cool because now, if you watch my podcast, it's pretty in depth. It's about an hour and a half, and we do really deep dives. Like we talk about like linear algebra, which I never went to university and learned, but I this imposter syndrome from speaking also helped me like fix it because I don't like feeling like an imposter. So I'm like, I don't know these things. I need to learn these things. I need to learn these things in depth. I need to learn these things to the degree where I can have a healthy, like satisfying conversation with experts. So I guess to answer your question, how did it help me? It helped me connect with really great people. It helped me feel like an imposter in front of these really great people, and then it helped me learn what like something in the area that they know, so that I just became a little bit more informed. Those are three ways I think it helped me. A lot of people associate the pain with speaking as, oh, I don't like it. I've learned that the pain with speaking, and by pain I mean struggling to prepare your slides, freaking out about, oh my gosh, I'm not prepared, and then being scared about sharing the stage with people you think are way more qualified than you, and they might be. All of those people associate with, oh, that's so scary and that's so painful. Oh my gosh, people are going to judge me. They're going to think I don't know. Even I thought that was painful and bad in the beginning, but actually that's the real gift of speaking, because that pain motivates you to get so much better or leave the speaking circuit, one or the other. But like both ways, you come away from it a better person. Either you realize I don't even like speaking, or you level up, so to speak. And it's absolutely beautiful. So that's how it helped me.
I saw in person your talk. It was in London. It was amazing, but it was like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I think that your mindset is like it can be basically similar to mine. It's basically a bless and a curse, because
Yeah.
it's a bless because you always want to improve. It's a curse because you know how you might do better, especially if you don't have to prepare a talk in the 3 weekends. Maybe I don't know. You can take like I don't know 1 month off and then you prepare your presentations. Usually this is not my case. I don't know if it's your case. Usually I prepare this after dinner do when I
Yeah.
have time. It's not my job, I would say, full time.
Same.
Otherwise probably you'll have like we'll do this it's like a great presentation. And but I think I like this idea of like doing it anyway, because otherwise we will never try public speaking.
Yeah.
When will we be ready? Do we have like someone calling like Francesco? Now you are ready to be a public speaker.
Yeah.
No, we'll never get this call. We'll feel at some point. We'll have some opportunities. I'll be curious to know about your first talk, if you remember it. How was it?
Yeah, my first talk was at an event called TEDx Youth at Doha. It was a TEDx event, and that's, for anyone listening, that's not like TED. TED and TEDx are very different. TED is big stage, highly qualified people, way more qualified than I am and probably will ever be. TEDx is smaller. It's affiliated with TED, but it's locally organized. So like TED gives you the brand and they give you like, they give you something to attract the local community, but fundamentally it's not TED. It's just the local community. So TED was running a TEDx event in Doha, the capital of Qatar, where I grew up. Um, I was, how old was I? I was 19 years old. And I saw that this was around. I've always wanted to be a speaker. I have always wanted to be on the stage, and I'm happy to talk about reasons why and where that comes from. But always wanted a platform. Wanted to be like, man, if people could only hear what I have to say. I was this kind of kid. Um, I was doing interviews and things with other people. I had a podcast when I was like 13, like I've just always been. And so I saw that this TEDx event was happening and I thought, this is cool. How do I sign up? Where's the CFP? Of course, this was 2012. None of this was a thing, but how can I, what can I do? And I found out, I found a link or an email address. If you're interested in speaking, send an email here. So I did. And the program committee thought that was something interesting for the audience. The topic I proposed was about the disease that I have, which is very rare, but the more people know about it and like actually know about it, not hear some rumors from people who don't know the details, then the better they will be positioned to support people with the disease, but also maybe engage in more conversations and cure it one day. It would be really cool if it was cured. There are people suffering and dying right now, thousands of them, right? So I proposed that. They said this is cool. Some people need to know about this, and so they approved it, and we had a number of dry runs and practice sessions and things like that. They remarked that, wow, he doesn't actually need any advice. They did have like a communications coach, and the man tried to help me, but I just didn't listen to him. If I'm being fully honest, I just said, yeah, I'm just going to do my own thing. And I was young and disrespectful that way. As most young men think they know everything, right? And so I was this kind of guy, and I just did my thing, and it turned out to be very well received. There's still on X, formerly Twitter, there's still a lot of positive things people said about it, even back then in 2012. So
I always say that a presentation, a talk should be about the audience and giving like a powerful message. So this is a perfect example. Also talking about your life, it can be, let's say, stressful in some ways, because you're basically exposing everything about you. And we know for sometimes we don't want to share everything about our personal life, especially on stage. It can also be emotional in some ways. But I'm happy that you did it. I'm happy that you tried it, and yes, and it's okay. I mean, you can try to have some advice, but if you really know what's the message you want to deliver, probably you don't need it. So yes, I like that. I don't know if that's available. Yeah, so I'll check it out at some point. Yeah,
It is. Yeah, it's on YouTube. Although
nice.
the sound
Yes,
quality is pretty bad. The microphone didn't work very well, but
it's okay. Maybe this is a stereotype, but we can say that, like, statistically, communication is not the best skill of the developers for reasons. Or maybe some people, they become developers because they are not great communicators, or they're not interested into social media, they're not interested into communication. It can also be the other way around. Sometimes I think that, like, when a person is like, I don't know, they just want to like leave me alone, I just want to do my own things, they can say, okay, I can become a developer. And that's why most of the developers, they don't have great communication skills. Now we are connected with people, like, on social media stuff, we do events, but there are like millions of developers who are just coding, which
yeah.
was basically me 5 years ago. So I would like to do this devil's advocate question. Like, is it communication really important for developers or not? Can you try to convince me? Like, can you try to convince the Francescos of 2018 that communication can actually improve my career as a developer?
Yeah, I mean, cool. I mean, the developer focus is I don't even know the value about like talking about communication specifically for developers, because for all human beings, it's one of the most important things you can possibly develop, and I'll tell you why. If you look at evolutionary science, um, there were two species. There are the Homo sapiens. There's the Neanderthals. These are very different species. Both us. We are the Homo sapiens. So and the Neanderthals species was like insane. Like I'm talking about, these people had huge muscles. They were very strong physically, very intelligent, better than us in almost every single way. And some evolutionary scientists will say they were better than us in every way. Fast forward all these years, we win. And why did we win? We were weaker, we were dumber. There's no reason we don't have. I don't know if you checked. I don't know if you agree, but we don't have. I don't have like big fangs and claws to scratch you. I'm pretty defenseless. Um, we still won because of our collaboration. That's why humanity wins. And that's why communication. How can you collaborate if you can't communicate? And so many developers, specifically, I mean, on GitHub and other platforms, there's this like LGTM. I will say the least amount that I have to. um, so I haven't really seen any data like empirically proving that developers are worse than others at communication, but I'm inclined to agree with you because I've been a developer and I've worked with developers my whole life. And yes, not investing in the skill of communication is really, really harmful. It robs you of all that life has to offer because it robs you of genuine human connection and collaboration. Another thing I'll say about this is human connection is also an extreme. I'm sure all of us who went through the lockdowns and the pandemic will agree, like human connection is extremely important for health, both mental health and physical health and performance in various things. And this is not just my opinion. There's plenty of data. One study they did on flies, literally flies, and they isolated these flies and they became aggressive and they assumed bad intention. You don't know what a fly assumes, but they were just very aggressive and irritable, as opposed to the flies that were socially in contact with other flies, which proves multiple times over that we need connection. And if you cannot communicate effectively, you cannot connect. And I think it's worth also defining here connection, which is not like, hi, how are you? Good. Okay, good. Like surface level connection in the biology of it and the psychology of it is not connection. That's I don't know what that is. That's not connection. Connection is I have expressed myself and I feel like I expressed myself and I feel like the other person captured my expression. So it's like these three things. If you don't have that, you're not connecting. And this is why there's so many people I know, um, and just generally people in the world who have some type of depression and anxiety because they don't connect with people. And they say, "Oh, but I meet 100 people. How can I be lonely? How can I how can I be depressed? I have so much connection. I'm meeting so many people, but are you connecting with them? That's a distinction. I myself have experienced this. As you can imagine, or as you know, I go to many conferences. Last year was nearly 40 conferences, and in conferences, I sometimes feel extremely lonely and unconnected. And you may ask how? I mean, these are highly social events. There's over 1,000 people here, and that's because there is no connection. It's like, hi, how are you? What do you do for work? Oh, JavaScript's cool, right? Great. Okay, let's go. And how is this connection, right? So all that to say, communication for developers and non-developers is extremely important because it allows us to connect with each other, which we need for health, and it allows us to actually collaborate with each other, which we need to move forward as a species. So
I love this. So this is probably the best answer that I ever had to this question. Also, we also had some history lessons, which I think it's really useful to understand who we really are, and I think yes, we should use like we don't have many good things, and as you said, we don't have fangs or long teeth, so we need to use at least those few things that we have. This is what can really make us shine.
also,
Yeah.
if we go back to my first talk, like what gave me that talk? It was my ability to communicate. Okay, why did I create the ability to communicate? It's because I couldn't do anything else. I could not. So my disease, I was extremely physically, I still am. If I don't take my medicine, I still have the disease. Nothing is cured. I'm incapable of physical things. Cannot do anything physical. Cannot play sports, cannot run, cannot do anything. Cannot do anything except type. And so I thought, wow, I am so limited physically. I should be good at something. I should be good at talking. I should be good at singing. I should. So I also sing. Like I used to be a singing teacher. Like there are things that I can't do, and so I was like, okay, what can I do? And turns out your voice, you don't need any like arms or legs to use it. So um, that's that's why it's the communication that got me that first speaking engagement and led me to the career and life that I have today, which I actually like. I'm not saying it's a big great thing. I'm definitely not a billionaire. I may be a million. I don't even know anything about money. But I'm just happy. I think that's the measure, right? Are you happy today? And communication has enabled me to live my best life despite a lot of things in life stacked against me. I was not born in the richest family. I was not born wealthy. I was not born healthy. And communication has enabled me to have a high quality of life despite all the circumstances. So
Nice. If you're not motivated after this, I don't know. I give up. So it's I think that this is a great and also strong mindset because to use what we have and try to do the best with what we have.
yeah,
Because when we don't have something, it's easy to just complain to what we have because some people can even say that it's fair,
yeah,
but what would bring this to us in our life? Let's say so. I would say it's a very strong way. Like basically, when you have a life like yours, say this as a compliment. Basically, you have two choices: either like you go, all complain mode because
yeah,
life has been bad with you, or you try to bring this and turn this into something good and use whatever you have and in the best possible way. So kudos to you. Tejas, I was looking for this one-on-one because at conferences sometimes it's noisy.
yeah,
It's noisy. Like so, we met, but it was hard to like sit for 20 minutes and have like this calm conversation that finally I'm having. I'm happy. It took me a while. Amazing, nice. So I would like you. So I absolutely agree. You have a great communication. You always had this. Probably also improved this also with the experience. But now for people who are listening here, I always like to try to help and do something useful for people that were watching this. So, what do you think are some ways, tips, call them whatever you want, to improve effective your communication skills, or is it that just a talent? What do you think is the way a way to improve it?
yeah. That's a really great question. I want to answer your sub question there. Is it just a talent? Absolutely not. Nothing, and I want to make this extremely clear for everybody listening. Nothing, and this is again proven in a really great 1996 paper by Dr. Carol Dweck. There's a book about it called Growth Mindset. Nothing in your mind, and actually, in many cases your body, some cases you're just born without an arm, whatever, but nothing is fixed. This is what I want to say. Like, if you don't have a skill, that your level of competency with that skill is never fixed, ever, ever, ever. It can always grow. Everything moves. Your brain is plastic. It literally changes shape. Okay, so um, nobody's born a great speaker. I don't know if you've heard a newborn, they can't even speak. So they just like say wah. So how is that speaking? It's not like a baby comes out and just like, oh, good morning, I'm born now. So it's just like it doesn't. Um,
That would
you
be,
know,
be creepy.
it would be a little bit creepy. Nothing is fixed, and it's a skill we grow. So, okay, your real question: how can we grow those skills? That is a great question. So for me, um, man, like I went through most of my early life without any exposure to anyone other than my family. I had no, so I was the weirdest, most awkward person ever. And I'm not saying this like the models who go like, oh my gosh, I'm so overweight. This is not the same. I was very, very unpopular until some random kids at school, the cool kids actually, invited me to come hang out with them. And I was like, what's happening? This is so strange. What do I do? And so I'm sitting there and they're doing what normal people, normal kids, high school kids do, is they make jokes, they laugh, they eat. And I'm sitting there going like, what do I do? What do I say? How do I fit in? What am I? And it was so strange. And I feel like there's a lot of people, a lot of developers who can relate to this, for sure. And so I was very, very concerned, very self-conscious. And so I was an engineer in the mind, and so I went on Google the next day and I said, "How do I be cool?" Literally, how do I have a great personality? And that's where I started my journey. I learned a lot of things, and some of those things I'll share. I think one of the biggest things for me is a lesson from the great Mark Manson. Mark Manson wrote a book called Models, and I don't agree with all of the book because it's about how to get girls. It's about how to be attractive to women, through honesty. That's the subtitle. And I did read it because I was also unattractive to women, and I wanted to be. We could talk about all of that if you want. But anyway, I read this book, and the big takeaway from this book is something that stuck with me. Right? Is you do your best to be your best self, your most authentic self, and then the planet is big. There's a lot of people, and some will love you enough to give you feedback and help you. Some will be like, that guy is a total jerk, I'm going to leave him. And some will just like you and stick around and just be your casual friends. And I thought this was really cool. So when I was sort of forming my life, I read that and I thought that is so cool. So I'm just going to be me. I'm going to communicate how I communicate. I'm going to actually communicate, though. I'm going to like say things. And a lot of people don't even say things. They don't even express themselves because maybe they're scared, maybe they're self-conscious, maybe they don't know what to say. So for me, it was very important to not stay inside myself. That's number one. Okay. So if you're asking for protocols for your listeners, number one, do not just stay inside. That's dangerous for the risks we talked about earlier. You're going to not connect with people. You're going to get depressed. You're going to get anxious. So for me, staying inside myself was not an option. Okay, I need to express myself, and that is communicate. How do I do it well? Well, I learned from this book. There's always going to be people who like it, who don't like it, or who love it and then help me change. And I thought, okay, cool. So as long as I say something externally, as long as I express myself outside, as long as I communicate, something will happen. I will get data, and I will move with this data. And that's exactly what I did. I was a kid, but I went out a few more times with a few more people, and I said some really strange things. I didn't know who I was. I had my phase when I was a kid, and maybe tech Twitter will cancel me. Fine, but when I was a really young child, I used to go like, "Oh, women belong in the kitchen," ha ha ha, and I used to make all these jokes. And obviously, like my mom was like, "What are you doing? That's bad. Don't do that." And so I learned, and that's because my mother loved me enough to go like that. We don't do that. I had a lot of people in school who thought I was a misogynist, and just they literally like they canceled me from their thing. They were like, I'm not going to stick around. This is just a bad guy. Fair, it was bad. And then I had people who liked me, like casual friends, and they were like, I don't agree with you, but I'm going to stay with you. And through all of these categories of feedback, that helped me consistently iterate like a machine learning model over time. And if you do like gradient descent, like the rate of error just goes down. I still make mistakes today, obviously, but that was my strategy to learn how to communicate really well. Is rule number one: no negotiation. We are expressing ourselves outside for sure. I'm not staying inside myself. My voice has to leave my mouth. Okay. Number two, what happens after? There's data, and we will work with this data and do some analysis and find where things go wrong and fix it. That's it. That's it. That's all of it. And so I think it's scary. You need a lot of strength to do that, because expressing yourself and being told you're a horrible person, you're awkward, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're black. Look, in my first job in Europe was full of white people, and they used to call. I don't know if I can swear on your podcast. I won't. But they used to call me. They had a name for me. They used to call me the S word. They used to call me S boy. And I said, why are you doing that? Oh, because that's the color of your skin. And so, like, of course, communicating is scary, and putting yourself out there is scary, and it can hurt. But for me, it's worth it. And it's just like anything else. It's like doing exercise. You lift some weights, your muscles are going to be sore. But at least for me, I tend to feel the pain, heal, recover, and then, okay, let's try again. And let's try again, and let's try again, and let's try again. And that's basically my whole career and life. And that's how I learned to communicate also.
I loved your engineering approach. So you gave like a clear algorithm and data based instructions. So now you can't really hide about this. Last consideration that I want to say is that yes, maybe we won against the Neanderthal man, but we still have work to do. Like even if we work as a human beings, I think we are not there yet. We can be awkward, for example, for you sharing this, how people called you. I want to believe that this can help someone else out there. So
Yeah.
this can finally stop. So it's I hope. Thank you so much for being so genuine and authentic. As I'm sure that you are. You are absolutely the same in person. I can say so, 100%. Tejas.
For people who are maybe wanting to communicate and can't yet, they can't express themselves. And I think that's, if there's one thing I know very strongly, one thing I've learned very intensely over the years, is pain is good. And that's a mindset. That's actually in the science, in the biology, in the psychology. It's called the stress is good mindset. That's literally what it's called. And there's papers published on this. You can go on PubMed. I'm sure you put links in the show notes. But so much research proving that when you have the stress is good mindset, you actually grow exponentially. You grow a lot when you in response to pain, and that is the story of my life. So if you're wanting to communicate and you're maybe scared because, oh, it's going to hurt, I'm going to get rejected, I'm going to, yeah, it will. But on the other side of that, you will adapt and get better. And adaptation is the whole point of human existence, for real. That is the thing. Like, we adapt to our environment. That's why we're here. And in the process of adaptation, ideally we adapt well enough that we can help others. But that's it. So
Do you consider yourself a native speaker?
but yes, I do, because I can tell you
Mm.
some context here. India is
Yeah.
a former British colony, um, like most of the world, and when it was a colony, the British soldiers were not loving people and giving them money and saying, "Hey, have a great day, slave. I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for funding my country." They were raping people. That's what they were doing. And so that's my line. I come straight from British guy got with some random Indian woman, and that's like my line. That's half my line anyway. So that's my mother's side, and so this is called the Anglo Indians, literally, because it's very anglicized, very British, and so. Because of that, and because we grew up in Qatar, my parents just didn't see the reason, any point in teaching me an Indian language, especially not for home use. Like if I'm gonna just have dinner, so we always spoke English. Since the first language I learned, I am definitely a native fluent speaker. Fun fact about the British heritage: the disease that I have is comes from Queen Victoria. So I do have royal blood. It started because they were a bunch of inbreeders, so that's where it originated, and then it went through the Russian kingdom and all the way to my side. Anyway, so yeah, that's why. So yes, English native for sure.
Think I improved a lot because for a simple reason. If I check my old videos, I want to delete them. So I think this is a proof that you improved, right? So this is a clear example. And for example, when I'm doing a podcast, I can focus. Now I can focus on speaking, and I still do mistakes, of course, but I feel that I improved. But for example, when I do, like, I don't know, live coding, or I'm focused on something else, I'm focused on a JavaScript or a Rust bug, I see that my pronunciation, like it lowers a bit, because by nature you are tempted to, let's say, go back on your like a little funny, and
Yeah.
that Italian has this funny accent. So I would like to ask you like this, because I found myself like in editing these videos, and I would like you to maybe, I don't know, give some tips. It can be for me or so for someone who is non-native speaker. I'm sure that you speak regularly also with people who are not native speakers. And what would you think it's like the best way? Because for me, this was a blocker. This stopped. I can see this has been probably the number one blocker for my YouTube channel. So basically, I started my YouTube channel like 8 and 9 years later. I think if
Mm.
I had started like 8 years earlier, I would say probably the story would have been different now. So I'd like to know from you, like how maybe, I don't know, how do you think that people can improve it or
Yeah.
make it better?
There's so many different facets to this question, and it's a great question. Because I'll start by saying this. There's empirical data showing that if people have an accent that is like foreign, then the receiver of the communication, so who's listening to them, trusts them less. This is measured and proven. So if I hear you speaking with an Italian accent, I just instinctively trust you less than I would if you were speaking like an American. That's absolutely horrible, and that's the world we live in. So that's where we're starting from. One positive side is the world is changing to become more tolerant. I'm super happy about this. So someone with my skin color would have had no chance like 20 years ago, for sure not. And so that's already changing. And I think similar to my skin color, your accent works against you, but it works against you less than it works against you today, which is really, really good. So what would I say to people who face those challenges? I think it's a real shame that you have to improve your accent to be taken seriously, but you do. Unfortunately, this will change. I think it is getting better, but if we're talking about like today, then that's needed. How do you do that? I can tell you how I did that because I did. If you go back and watch my first TEDx, if you watch videos from
I will.
10, yeah, if you watch all that old stuff, I sounded different. I slowly, progressively became more and more American sounding, and that's not intentional. It's just by virtue of the people I spent the most time around. And so I guess that's what I would tell people is like um, if you want to sound like a British guy, then go spend time with like just like spend time with these people, and it just changes. The more you speak with certain people, or the more you listen to certain people, the more you sound like them. And I guess the reason I sound like this is because in Qatar, there is a very big community of Americans because there's lots of money and it's tax free. And also white people are treated like God in this country. So that combination it attracts a lot of Western folks. And so I grew up around a lot of Americans. My first girlfriend or second was American for many, many years, and so on and so forth. I watched a lot of American TV, and now I speak at a lot of conferences in the US, and most of my clients and workload is US based. So it's just exposure over time for me.
Yes, thank you. And so, as you said that I need to make practice. So, in your podcast, I'll make some practice,
But
of
I will
course.
say it is getting better. So people are less intolerant, and my
Mm.
podcast for sure is not intolerant at all. Every listener of my podcast, I kick them out if they give my guests a hard time.
Absolutely. Absolutely, but and this reminds me something that there are also some Italian like shows to funny videos of people like they stay too much time in the north of Italy when they have a different dialect, and they start speaking with the northern Italy dialect, which of course, if you're Italian, you can feel the difference of someone
Yeah.
from the south and the north, and some people make funny videos. So I like this idea of having like exposure, and probably that's the best way
Yeah.
to learn it. Of course, listen and try to
But
improve it day by day.
it's so
Yeah.
interesting because even in the United States, like this country's national language is by and large English. I don't think they have an official. Like, I don't know, but I think just by virtue of like majority language, it's English. I think yeah, if you want to be a citizen, you have to learn English or something like this. So the whole country speaks English, or at least should. Or okay, this is whatever. Just statistically, the whole country speaks English. Um, but even inside the country, they make fun of each other. They're like, "Oh, the South talks weird, the North," and
Well,
it's the same with the UK. So English accents, whatever. So like I don't really care. And I think the people who matter, this is something important for people concerned about accents to hear. The people who matter are the people who will stay. um, and that's not just true for accents, it's true for anything. If you're creating content, if you're writing code, if you're going through life, the people who matter are the ones who will stay. So
You would like to give a final message, and then we can wrap up this first episode of Talking with Francesco.
yeah, I've given many messages, but let's see the final message. Yes, you know what? I will. Earlier this year, so in January, I had a very transformative experience where I have struggled with communication. You say I'm a great communicator, but everybody has issues, and for me, I don't think I was a great communicator. I'm trying to be one now, but my biggest problem, and I share my problem here to encourage your listeners. My biggest problem until January of this year, 2024, was yes, I was a okay communicator, but I was pretty direct, and I lacked empathy. I lacked kindness. In many cases, like if I was giving feedback on some product, I would be like, "This doesn't work. This is bad." It was very short. It was not really like addressing the other person respectfully, and in some cases, it was very sarcastic. So I can share this. I had one example where somebody copy pasted an error to me. They said, "Hey, it doesn't work. Here's the error message." And the error message is one of those error messages that tells you how to fix it. You know, so this person copy pasted, "Hey, it's not working. Here's the error." And I responded to him. I was like, "Look, if you can read, you can fix it." And this, of course, is not kind. And so that was last year. I'm sure many of us have been there. And so what I learned this year on the 7th of January was the importance of showing honor to people. So, and this fixed a lot of my communication. It's not just about getting the information across. It's not just telling you like, "Hey, this doesn't work. This is good. This is bad." It's about a person has appeared in front of me. Now it's time to honor them first and then do the thing. This is like a cash warm up, like a pre-check. And this step was missing in my communication. And so I've learned the importance of showing honor to people, and I've made it like the most important part of my communication. And that's my takeaway for people: is I don't think there's anything more important than actually honoring the person in front of you, and finding creative ways to do that. And it's not always going to be the same. For example, my best friend in the whole world, we've been friends for like over 20 years, and if I go meet him, I'm not going to be professional about it. I honor him in his way. I honor the context of our friendship by saying, "What's up, you piece of shit?" How, like, like that's how you greet each other. You're like, "Hey, what's up?" But like if I come to work, then I honor the work context and I treat my colleagues with that honor. So it's a nuanced issue, but it's something that I think is extremely important, showing honor to everybody, and that's what I would leave your listeners with.
Thank you. And yes, I think there are different levels of like confidentiality of friendship. And probably, yeah, if some of your real friends they show you an error like this, they'll say, "Hey, dude, are you blind? Can you read?" So in that case, it makes sense. But I think it's also, I don't think that being direct can be something bad. But you never know who you're talking with. Some people might struggle. Maybe they are new. Maybe
Exactly.
they've been doing the wrong thing. And this it's also connected to what you said before. Maybe that person didn't like check enough or needed like I don't know asked somewhere, and so basically maybe they've been stuck on that for literally 2 weeks. Because
Yeah.
this also happened to me when I was like not on social media or not like actively getting feedback continuously. Sometimes there was time I was stuck for like 2 weeks on a
Exactly.
dumb mistake because I was not communicating this. So communication can actually make you waste and lose a lot of time. This is why now I'm shameless. I don't care because I know that if I do go live and I do a dumb mistake, I miss a semicolon, I miss a colon, you get the feedback immediately. I just would like people who are listening here to just trying to improve their communication skills. I want to
Yeah,
bring as many people as possible in this podcast to say that this is absolutely important. And yes, so thank you so much, Tejas. This has been a great episode. We will leave all the links in the description, including your first talk. I'm sorry, and also how to follow you everywhere. But thank you so much again, and yes, see you around. Probably we'll meet at some conference, maybe even
for
this
sure.
year. But yes,
I'll
for
see you. I'll
now,
see you on my podcast.
for sure in your podcast and also some conference in person again.
Great.
Thank you so much,
Take
and
care.
bye
Bye.
bye.